This is Vam Electric Ghost, and we are live on the air with the SoapGirls from South Africa.
Hey!
And we talked to you back on our audio podcast, which we still do, but since the beginning of this year, we've been doing video podcast, and we really like doing it this way because we get to actually see the people that we're talking to, and they get to see us. So, you know, if you want to see me,
You get to see if anyone's picking their nose.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
it's always good to see that. Makes you like not just wear your sweatpants. Though I probably am wearing my pajamas right now, but
Oh no, we're not wearing anything on the bottom, so it's fine.
That's always good. So yeah, so we talked to you before on our Anchor FM, and we still have that, and this will be on Spotify later. Everybody, you can see the LinkedIn, the link tree for your the Soap Girls. We always encourage everybody to check out the websites of the artists we talk to, and also on this show, we're actually going to show a video of the band. So we're queuing that up right now. And we're going to get into that, and then we'll talk about their music. But ahead of time, we just want to get you to have a flavor of what they sound like in a visual. So we've got Society's Rejects up, and we'll put you on mute, and then we're going to talk to you on the backside of it, okay?
Hey, sweet.
Is it gonna be strange? Well, get ready. I let you in on a fifth little secret. I am society's reject. I drown in the depths, you're too shallow. You say jump as if I'm a follow. Get out before you really start to burn. I scream, the only way to be heard. You're free as long as you want to be. Get out of society. Wish that I could be just like you. Fuck me, fuck you, fuck the wrong too. Wish that I could be just like you. Hate me, hate you. Wish that I could be just like you. Turn my eyes to society's mischief. Wish that I could be just like you. Don't give a fuck, don't even have a clue. Hate me, hate you. Fuck me, fuck you. Screw and screw you. Fuck that, fuck you. Life's cheap, but you're so overpriced. It's green, never been circumcised. Stand up, you know you'll be shot down. Life's free, but you're gonna pay somehow. Time flies as fast as you buy it. No hope, yeah, you're slowly dying. You do whatever you're told to. Why when they're the ones that screw you? Wish that I could be just like you. Fuck me, fuck you, fuck the wrong too. Wish that I could be just like you. Hate me, hate you. Wish that I could be just like you. Turn my eyes to society's mischief. Wish that I could be just like you. Don't give a fuck, don't even have a clue. Hate me, hate you. Fuck me, fuck you. Screw and screw you. Fuck that, fuck you. You hit me, I'll punch you now without play. I got you, you hate me now without see. I want this, you don't, and now without see. I love it, you hate it, is that life the same? Isn't life the same? Isn't life the same? Wish that I could be just like you. Fuck me, fuck you, fuck the wrong too. Wish that I could be just like you. Hate me, hate you. Wish that I could be just like you. Turn my eyes to society's mischief. Wish that I could be just like you. Don't give a fuck, don't even have a clue. Hate me, hate you. Fuck me, fuck you. Screw and screw you.
Society's Rejects, and now we're back to the main interview. How you guys?
Woo!
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, it's still kick ass. It's still badass.
Hey,
Thank you. I actually haven't seen the video in a while, so I'm glad I resaw it.
Yeah, when I saw
You
it now, I
guys-
was like, what happened to those earrings that I had?
You guys channeled kind of like the Runaways, and
Hey,
That's
thank
a
you.
huge
That's a big
compliment because
compliment.
we fucking love them.
and
We
the
love
El
their
Sagan.
attitude.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love. If everybody notices, I tend to interview female artists because I think in this age, female artists are kind of doing it better than the guys for a lot of cases. So I just find that there's a lot of interesting work being done, and it's not being focused on sometimes by other people. So I like to give female artists and producers their fair time on the net.
Yeah, well, thank you.
That's fucking cool.
Well, yeah, because it's like I just think all music is cool, and I'm into all genres, but I am very much into punk. I kind of grew up. I'm 54, but I grew up like in like listening to bands in like '78, and one of the first bands I really got into was like Joy Division, and
Oh,
We
I
love
love
Joy
Joy
Division.
Division.
yeah, and it really I was like, wow, I like that kind of post punk thing. And then I'm a keyboardist, so it's kind of like when I heard what they were
Yeah.
doing, and it was kind of like pre the first new wave band, and they were doing stuff that was like ahead of the Cure, ahead of Depeche Mode. They had this kind of interesting sound that was they still had the guitars, but they started introducing like the synths, and then they did it in a way that was very stark and kind of punkish. And I always liked that. I mean, I like bands like Hooska Doo and Replacements and Butthole Surfers and all that stuff.
Oh,
Kinda,
we love the Butthole Surfers too.
Yeah.
Also, just because it's not just the music, it's also
Their attitude and the fact that they
the music videos as well. They were always different. They didn't fit to any mold.
it wasn't trying to be perfect. It was just you could see that it was like
Raw.
people, yeah, they were just expressing themselves, and that's what it was. It
Yeah.
wasn't some contrived like
No, it's
okay,
not
we're gonna
like
do
like
this
the hair metal bands. I think what happened, like, I grew up at the beginning of punk, like where the Clash were big. Joy Division was big. You had the Ramones, and CBGBs was really big when I was growing up, and the Talking Heads and all those bands showing up there. Even Blondie, early Blondie's really punk, and I was like, that's what I like. Because like I grew up with the bands like Zeppelin and the Who and AC/DC and Pink Floyd, but everybody started getting too big, and they got a little like the fans like we can never be like Jimmy Page, right? I can never be Pete Townsend. Like they're way beyond what I can get to. And so the whole idea with punk was like, hey, I could be Johnny Rotten, I could be Joe Strummer, I could do that, I could be in the Ramones, because it's just like the attitude, and it made people feel like they could be involved in the scene, which I think is really cool. I think it's a
Yeah, it was
positive thing.
basically like the voice of the people. They were saying things that
People felt as well.
and they were saying things that maybe other people were too scared to say, but they were like blatant upfront about it. So some people found that shocking, I think especially people's parents. But then it's crazy how it all turns around. Yeah.
Well,
Like
people,
the bands that were once controversial in today's times actually seem like they were very good, moralistic people.
Yeah.
yeah, like MC5. Everybody thought MC5, from Detroit, they thought that they were like, oh, they're so radical. But you listen to anything on SoundCloud today, and it's like, come on, that's not
I
anywhere.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
For me, even the fact that what are some bands like where people thought it was shocking,
Like even Slipknot. It's like, come on.
and like I don't know, I would say even the Sex Pistols, like their music wasn't like
Wasn't the radical
gonna
as
bring
some of
down
the
the
stuff?
world.
Yeah, but like Nirvana kind of crunches it heavier than they do. There's a lot of bands that kind of came after them that are actually more punk than them. So it because they were kind of produced by guys. I mean, they were Beatle chords in the structures of their songs.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
like,
it's awesome though.
but they have
I
an
think
awesome
in a lot
sound.
of in a lot of like scenarios of where people find one band maybe more like, I don't know, like shocking or something, sometimes it's more what they see first,
Yeah,
not
it's like
necessarily what they hear. So they'll see someone, I don't know, maybe like with a mohawk or like
Safety
piercings
pins.
in their
Safety
face, and they're like,
pins,
oh
yeah.
my god.
Yeah, I think it
That's a
was
terrible boy, that is.
Oh my God! Have you seen that lad? Keep him away from you, Julie.
I
Like,
think it was like
yeah.
Malcolm McLaren and, and Johnny Rotten, they had this image thing. The image was they actually were trying to sell clothes at the
Oh
beginning.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
At
Yeah.
the beginning, you'd like Malcolm McLaren's like, "I want you to, like, sell my punk style clothes. I really don't care what you sound like. I just want you to sell stuff out of my make people come to my shop and buy it." And so
And
this
it worked.
it did work. It kind of created that whole, look, that, and then the Clash kind of took it and made it maybe more legitimate because the Clash, I really love the Clash. But like getting into your story, you guys like started in a different genre and then came into what you are now, right? Tell people maybe
Well,
that don't know your history.
Well,
basically, so we always wrote
our own
music,
music, and we've
and
always been musical. But when we were kids, we actually used to street perform. We would sell soap, homemade soap that our mom made,
and then
and
go down to the harbor and like sing.
we
with the-
lived in a little village, and we would go and sing and like raise awareness of the public hospitals, children's homes, and places that were in dire need of funding here in Cape Town, South Africa. And we would street perform and make up songs and skits, different accents, and we've always loved music and entertaining people. And one day this guy with the studio, but we'd heard a lot of bullshit, and we were about like what 12,
He
13.
was like, "Hey, I have a studio. Do you want to come?" And
Just
why did you look at me when I said that?
what? When you said come, no man, come on, what the
Jesus
fuck?
Christ,
What the
dude.
fuck?
Come on,
Come on,
get
man.
your head out the
You
gutter.
had your head in
I
the gutter.
saw
I didn't
you.
even think about it like
No,
that.
so he
Yeah,
said,
my head's
I have-
all the time. Don't worry about it.
he said, "I have a studio. Do you want to come and record some songs, maybe sing?" And then we were like,
yeah, okay, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, fuck it, man.
So we went, and obviously,
Yeah, we wrote some interesting shit. It wasn't cool, but we could see where we wanted to go. But we were always
by
shocked.
interesting, she means shit.
No, like we were always shocked by the limitations other people imposed on us and where they thought we should sound, what we should do. It was very actually
'Cause
very
they-
annoying and very
They
restrictive.
always imposed their image for us onto
Oh, like
us.
Like we
outside
loved all kinds of
producers.
music.
Yeah.
With like R&B, rock, and everything, and they were always like,
No,
no,
you
no, no, no,
can't
no,
do
pop
this.
music. So they tried to always pigeonhole.
Oh,
So
they
then we
wanted to
started.
put you into pop. They wanted
Yeah.
pop.
We started going into recording studios like in Johannesburg and all around South Africa. And again, it would be cool. It would always be a learning curve. And then once we realized that it's a dead end of limitations, we actually, nah, fuck this. But we'd learned enough, and then we went another way. And eventually we got our manager. Well, our mom is our manager, but she only works with us because she believes in what we're doing.
Yeah,
She's
in a
really
professional capacity.
yeah, she's really radical. If she doesn't like something,
she'll tell us.
straight.
drop
But
them,
one of
drop
our
'em.
songs got picked up by an A&R guy from Universal.
Because we first actually had a song, a really cheesy song called Boys, 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 that got onto a Japanese compilation disc.
And that was a song that he heard, and he phoned and he was like, "Hey, I want to meet with you girls."
And at the time, we were about 14 and 15. We thought being signed to a record label was
that's the dream.
biggest thing,
Yeah,
especially like Universal Music. We were like, what the fuck?
Well,
Like
that
this
was
is
still the
gonna
dream.
yeah, we
Yeah.
thought it was gonna make our dreams come true. Music videos, because we didn't have money, so we were like,
Oh my
music
god,
videos,
this is it.
everything.
Yeah.
Fuck, this is gonna be so sick.
But it doesn't work like that.
No.
Yeah, especially
And
today, yeah.
Yeah.
it's just it's a huge corporation, and it really wasn't what we thought. And again, it took us 4 years to get out of the contract. We actually recorded an album. The songs were very popular. They got into like the top 5 on all the major radio stations
But
here.
that wasn't the music that we wanted to do. So
I mean, it was cool music, don't get me wrong. Like there's nothing wrong with EDM and all that, but there was no room for us to grow.
because it was
Yeah,
either
and I
that
think
way or that's it.
yeah. I think one of the
And we
problems,
couldn't be real. Like
I think,
you could never do an interview where you could just talk
the
to people
controlling.
without a wall.
Oh, so they were totally like, it's like the machine. It's like back in the 70s, you had these machines. Like, and some bands kind of controlled their machine. Like, the Stones controlled their machine because they were the machine,
Yeah.
and Zeppelin controlled their machine because they had a crazy manager that kind of just forced everybody to deal with them. But and otherwise, if you get into the normal record industry, you get into like something like a Motown, where you get to be one of these teen acts, they totally control you. One
Yeah.
of my favorite artists is the guy named Alex Chilton. And Alex
Oh,
Chilton
shit.
Yeah, he was in a band called the Box Tops, and they had this famous song called "The Letter" when he was like 17. And then they wanted him to keep on doing this like Blue Eyed Soul, kind of like Hall and Oates type of thing. And he didn't want to do it. He loved the Beatles, so he went and created a band called Big Star. Big Star is
Oh.
like the Velvet Underground of the 70s. They've got like 3 5-star records that went nowhere. And they
Oh,
sound like an American Beatles. Yeah, and
okay.
that's where he wanted to go, but the record companies didn't want him to do that. He had this really good voice, and they wanted him to do like Blue Eyed Soul, and he refused. He wanted to do Beatle-esque music, and so he's like a hero of mine because he got recognized later because like Counting Crows name checked him, a bunch of other bands like REM name checked him. And so like his band finally got recognized like in the late 90s, early 2000s
Oh,
and started to make money. But then he passed away like in the late 2000s. But um it's just interesting that the record companies try to force you into a box. And I've seen it like many over and over and over. And that's why I love talking to indie artists like yourselves because your
thank
story
you.
it's cool because you guys are doing what you want to do.
Yeah, it was still a struggle though. I mean, basically what happened even because we were so young, then they had this very different kind of image for us. And initially the first album we recorded was a huge screw up. They fucked up and they paid in advance the money to like, to help us survive like rent and shit and
Mhm.
record.
But
Um,
they
but they paid it into the sound engineer's account. And he was a huge drug addict and
And he took
like
he
a
all the
coke
money.
addict.
he
Yeah.
yeah, he blew everything, and he used to bring a gun to the studio. This guy was fucking insane, and we were all like,
Because like if you got a take wrong or something,
this
then it
guy
was
was
just
mental. It
like
was
super aggressive. It
yeah,
was not cool.
Oh,
it
it's
was
Yeah.
not
kinda like
cool.
Death Row Records.
And no, but the cover up, they had to cover it up. The people who fucked it up. So we couldn't tell the big boss at the record label about what was happening in meetings. We had to just keep
And
quiet.
say nothing.
And so we struggled, and then we had to wait like a whole year later, or like even over a year later,
Because
to record another album.
the problem with record labels, especially if you don't know your rights and if you don't
Mhm.
have a good lawyer, then they basically own everything and they screw
Yeah,
you
they
over
grabbed
left,
the
right, and
master.
center.
Yeah, because you had problems, like, they probably owned your master, right? They owned all your
Oh
recordings.
yeah,
Yeah.
you cannot release music, you cannot go on tour, you cannot play certain venues unless they approve of it.
Even some artists, they've had to make a band name that's different to their own name just so that they can do the music that they
Yeah,
want
because I mean,
to.
if you're not, like, in one of those pro organizations like BMI or pro any of those, right? And they end up getting control of your performance rights, then
You're
even
fucked.
when you play somewhere, you don't get the money,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we didn't earn a cent. We had the stuff playing on the radio. We were like fucking broke.
But
We've
broke
never
as
been so
fuck.
broke in our lives as when we were with the record label. We were fucked. Like, and
they
then
let you in.
eventually we got out of the contract, and it was cool. I mean, the only play we were very controversial as well, like, because it's a very I wouldn't say conservative, but very like backward country in
In a
many
lot of
regards. Maybe it's a lot more open-minded now, but when we did the music, we were like a shock. I mean, Lady Gaga was considered satanic here, like
Oh,
they
wow,
would
if they thought
protest her. Yeah, but so we the only places we were able to play really were gay pride parades,
and gay
gay
clubs.
clubs and that, and at casinos and shit. And it was really shit, man. Not the like the
Not
places we
saying
could play at,
those
but
people are lovely, but
it was just really shit that there was no room for
so
growth
you
for
were
us.
kinda in the underground scene.
yeah.
You kinda run into
Yeah,
but that
but
kinda
then
gives you
when
some
we
credibility. I mean, it gives you like, then I think that scene will look at you like, "Oh, they're legit," right? Because 'Cause you're kinda coming from that kinda
no, no, the record label didn't like it
Oh no,
because
they told us to distance ourselves from like that
Oh,
community and
they
that,
were like, no, I mean, affiliate with the gay community, but
but don't
don't
fully like say
oh,
that
with them
you.
because there's still family values here. And we were
And we're
like,
like, what the
what?
fuck?
So we that didn't bode very well with us, and we hated that. And we could never change our imagery. They would put us into men's magazine, and
Without our
we
permission.
were like really young. We were like, what the fuck
oh,
is
that's trying to
this?
yeah, I think it's always the rub, because they wanna turn, artists into, like, objects, and they just wanna sell you like a product,
But
and
then
and
ironically, do you know what the crazy part was? When we chose to dress how we wanted, like normal teenagers, like, with wearing mini skirts and that, it
Or
was a
midriff,
problem.
then oh no, we weren't allowed that. But then it was okay if they said no, you
You
must wear this and you must pose
in
like this.
FHM
And
we were like,
what the
what?
fuck?
What
That
the
doesn't
So
fuck?
make
they're
any
trying to
sense.
control the venue and the time that you could dress at a certain way, but you couldn't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And so eventually we got out of the contract, took 4 years, but then we were blacklisted, completely
Yeah.
blacklisted
So
in
you
the
didn't.
music industry here.
Oh wow! So were you able to? Did you get out of it by becoming connected to like a European label or?
No. So we eventually also what the thing was at the time, we were illegal immigrants. Although we are French born, we grew up in South Africa,
But
and
here it's so corrupt, so it took us years to become
legalized. And that
Oh
was also
yeah, 'cause
shit that
green
was used
card.
against us by people
Wow.
who knew about it in
So
the
they
record label.
knew that we were in this fucked up situation, so they always had that like over
Oh,
us,
they were
like
Because
using
they
it as
could
a trump
have
card.
us deported or shit.
yeah.
And it was really bad. On when I was 18, I had to go and hand myself over. I was arrested
Wow.
for
So
being an illegal immigrant.
immigration had to you had to go and clean up your immigration paperwork and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Holding it against you. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the corporate world is like not, it's like the Wall Street movie, greed is good. It's
But
what you
eventually we got it right. This woman who saw us going there every single week, day after day, month after month.
She just took us aside and she took our file and she said, you know what, I'm probably going to get fired for this, but you know what, fuck it, I'm going to give you the stamp of approval and you'll be legal in the country.
And I'll never forget this woman. She was fucking amazing. So we eventually got everything legalized, and we were like fucked. We had like everything stolen, all our guitars, all gear. Like our mom even had a ring that she kept for an emergency, just for money in case we ever needed.
All stolen. So we were literally just screwed.
We were screwed. And so we tried to find like whatever work we could, and we saved up everything we could, and we got ourselves over to America, and then we were recording in New York. That was in, I think, 2013. Yeah. And we were
Everything
offered
was cool, and we were offered like this big contract, but then when they played us back the music that we recorded, it wasn't
what we wanted. It was again back to the EDM stuff, which was great, but it was like we wanted to break away from it.
You guys wanted to be more like punkish, like what you sound like now, like
more rock, yeah.
Yeah.
And like it was
just like real instruments.
Yeah, it was just very irritating for us, and we were just like, what the fuck? So people called us stupid because at the time we had like zero money. They said, you're so stupid to turn down the contract, but it doesn't work in the way that people think. They think that you get signed, you'll have a big platform and money to do what you want to do. No, it doesn't work like that.
You owe all those people that
No,
money.
I mean, even the Beatles, when they got signed, right? They got pennies on the only way they made money. Like Brian Epstein got him such a shitty deal. It's really bad. But because they sold so much content, they made money. But when they looked at it, they were like, wow, we got ripped off. So in an industry where the Beatles got ripped off, like Prince got ripped off, like Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, they all had to renegotiate their deals. Like it's just a historical mess in the industry that then like so many modern bands like Pearl Jam, and they're indie,
Yeah.
You look at a band like Radiohead, they're indie. They refuse to be on the labels anymore because like, how am I going to do what I want? I can't do it, so I'm going to do it our way.
It was shit. And then eventually, so we left, and then we got back, and we just kept uploading our own organic videos on. We saved up whatever we could to buy an acoustic guitar, and then we were just like
doing our videos, and then somebody contacted us
from England after about a year of uploading videos, and they said they really love what we're doing. They want to book us over for a tour, and we're like, yeah, fucking right. Like,
I mean, you hear this all the time.
Yeah,
and
so
people,
you're controlling your own fate. Then you're doing the way you want it.
No, but we were just expecting it to be a lie because
you hear people like, oh, I want to help you, and I'll bring you over, and you can play these shows, and I've got this booked for you. But it's all bullshit. But this guy was legit, and we went over, and then it
was a very crazy first tour.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know anything. We didn't have how do you call that GPS in the car?
Oh, the
sat
the
nav.
travel, the track where you're going and to get the map, they do your
Yeah,
map.
Yeah.
we had nothing.
And
We
this is
didn't
our
know.
first time in the UK, so we were like, "Where the fuck
Fuck
are
are we?
Yeah,
we?"
And
you're
I
like,
don't
how
know.
easier to drive anywhere. You're trying to get to the gig, you feel like, "How the hell did I get to the gig?"
Yeah, we had no idea, but you know what? It was really awesome, and we ended up the first show that we did, it was crazy, and from that show we got a really amazing following of like people that are just passionate about punk and rock music, and we were like, oh my god, this is crazy,
And every year it's just like
grown
grown
and
and
grown,
grown.
and we
Yeah, 'cause it's
literally have
not
the best bands.
'cause I really if you look at what you're doing, like, you PJ Harvey, if you get into like I said, all the members that have been in the Runaways, they have that kind of feel. But, like, today, I find bands on the indie underground that aren't really known that channel your kind of vibe, and I'm into that because that's what I like. But, yeah, it's like in the popular realm, everybody just wants to talk to the same 5 producers doing the same kind of EDM trap techno beats, throwing in like hip hop guest features and it's all kind of derivative and it's like people like it if you can bop to it or whatever. But like I'm more of a guy, I'm into Sun Ra. I'm into Funkadelic, I'm into
Ooh,
Sid Barrett, Pink Floyd. So the Pink Floyd you don't hear on the radio. um, but it's hard to find stuff that's like artistic, that's actually
yeah,
It's like a
coming from the heart.
polystyrene sandwich, someone giving you a polystyrene sandwich,
it looks great, but
but then when
it's
you bite your teeth into it, it's like, what the fuck?
But seriously, every genre, everyone just sounds the same. I mean, years ago, you could go to a party and you like even if you look at movies, you'd have the Offspring playing, then you could have Enya on, then you could have
Yeah.
like
It was just
the
like a whole mix.
like it was the Cardigans, and you could have the Cause, and you could even have like James Brown, and it wasn't like people just listen. It was music. It was cool. Now it's almost every genre is the same.
Well, the problem is I think it's the DAW, and I've railed against this because I like the digital audio workstation for the freedom it gives you to not be in the studio. Puts in too many. What I think it does is it causes people to try to be too perfect, and then it sounds kind of plastic.
Ah,
It sounds plastic. So I personally record to hardware recorders, and I use analog and digital.
that's the best. We
Analog is
fucking
cool,
love
yeah.
it. There's something about the sound. It's so like authentic. It's warm. It's real.
Yeah, if this the thing about it, when I work with a musician, I tell somebody, it's like, could you put Keith Richards' guitar playing into a DAW and get it to match the BPM? No, you can't. Right. So my whole point is that's the way I want you to write. Write like a jazz guy, like Coltrane or Sun Ra or like Funkadelic. You can't get that to map, right? You can kind of force it, but my whole thing is like when I try to play with people, it's like you got to play by feel. I'm a feel guy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll get on my Moog, get with somebody on a drum set, and I'll get into a vibe because that's the old school way of recording. And then today, everybody just wants to do it on the lane, on their Pro Tools or in whatever tool they're using. And yeah, you can make it sound perfect, but is it really worth listening to?
it's
'Cause
something that we also find like when we record it, it's a little bit annoying sometimes. Like live, the energy's there, and then we'll hear like the recorded, and we like
It's
what
like it's not the
it's not the
same.
same. So we sometimes we just keep changing it up. We like, and now we've realized, yeah, we also prefer like analog. It's just it's so annoying when it's clean. It's
'Cause
just it's too
sometimes
polished
sometimes for us, and it's like the same, one day I would wanna have our own studio
because we know
and
exactly what we want.
because we know how we wanna sound and how it's supposed to be, but sometimes even, like, you're working with people and
Like
it's
we
a
will
sound
work with
engineer
an
or whatever,
engineer. Yeah, we
and
produce it ourselves, but
like, they don't get it. They're
yeah, a
not
lot of times they just want to go in and I had some guy that said he liked the Ghost, right? And everything I do is like not tracked. It's not tracked to BPM. It's all like I go and manually play every track. I go and physically play it. I don't do it on a grid. So he tried to match my style and he's like, "Oh, I can't sync up to your BPMs." Like, you're never going to sync up to my BPM. You're going to have to actually play. You're going to have
Yeah.
to sit down with your instrument and play against my track and kind of deal with the happy accidents and actually play to it. It's like, oh, I'm trying to do it on the grid. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to do it on the grid.
I
Yeah,
think people are so obsessed with perfection that they can't handle. It's the same, even with Photoshop and things like that. All those things are great tools. I mean, look, maybe someone's got a massive zit and they got to be on the cover of a magazine. I get it, but
Yeah, fix
it's
that.
gone to the point where when people see reality, they
they
don't
don't
know
know how
how
to
to react to
and they
it.
think that it's ugly or something, but they don't realize that imperfections are what make us unique.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to me, if you listen to some of the greatest music that from the 60s and 70s, and you get the history behind it, there's tons of happy accidents. There's tons of like accidentally changing the key or accidentally changing the timing. Like I always tell people, like you listen to like a song like Todd Rundgren's like "Hello, It's Me." It's a real
Mm.
famous like love song, right? If you listen to it real close, you can hear the errors. There's tons of errors in the final mix, and it was put out that way. And a lot of songs in the 70s, if you listen to them on headphones, you can actually hear like the mistakes, but it actually makes it what it is. And
Exactly.
if you try to fix it, it would actually change the character of the song, you know?
Same, even like in the movie Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
Like, so that scene where he's trying to teach her the moves and then he has to go like this with her arm. But and this wasn't supposed to be in the script, she kept laughing. The actress kept laughing every time he did that. And he was getting pissed off with her. And she's like, okay, I'm sorry, we'll do it again. But they used that in the movie because
It was
It's
so
more
real.
real.
it was so
It's more real.
real.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
Sometimes,
actually hated each other apparently, and it just added to it.
well, I think directors make those choices. And I think like a good producer realizes that instead of doing 100 takes, then maybe it's the third or fourth take. And maybe it's the voice that was off your phone that ends up being the lead vocal, because that one actually sounds more real than the highly processed perfect one. A lot of times what you find is it's the first couple of takes that actually have the honesty of the song. And I've
Exactly.
Exactly.
No, we have a thing when we're in the studio. If it takes more than 3 takes, stop. Then we swap out with each other. We're like, fuck off, get out, and then the other one will do it. You hit your shot or you don't. Otherwise, you lose the
Yeah, the
character.
spontaneity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the honesty of a song, like as a songwriter, I think you're most honest on the first couple of takes. And then
Mm.
you start like second guessing yourself and saying, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I'm
It
revealing.
gets mechanical.
Yeah, then you're like trying to capture something that you actually did, right? You actually did it right. And maybe there's an error, and then you keep on trying to fix it, but you can't get the feel. Because like
It's
Yeah.
true.
you're a human being and you felt that a certain way when you wrote it. And then the further you get away from it, you kind of Xerox in yourself. And then it gets
It's
weaker
true.
and weaker and weaker and weaker. And then you're like, I always tell people like I don't care if there's an error. I don't care if there's a little noise in there that shouldn't be there. If that's the best one, that's the one we're going with.
It's the same though, like even when you're on stage, the moment you start thinking about what it is that you're doing,
Oh yeah, you'll
then
fuck it up.
it's a fuck up.
You'll fuck
Like
it
you fucked.
up.
That's it. Like you're gonna screw up. So
It's
it's the
just like,
same.
whoa.
It's the same in the studio. You shouldn't like be thinking that hard about it. Like just
Do
let it go. Yeah.
I love to do stream of consciousness. It's something like I might have something I wrote down, right? I write down like the main melody, and I might have a hook in my head on the bass. And then but then when I go to record, I just hit all my recorders and I just go, right? And then I go back and I listen to it and I say, well, that's the groove. And lately what I've been doing is I actually go live and do like an hour set and just randomly do whatever. And then I go back
That's
and
so
listen to
cool.
it, and then I find the songs. And one of the things, the reason I do it is like Neil Young used to with Crazy Horse, they used to just go play like for hours, and then he'd have it on a reel, and he'd go back to it a couple weeks later and listen to it, and he'd have all these reels from different sessions, and he'd start mixing and matching. And Frank Zappa was famous for that too. And I'm like, that to me is like a better way to record than trying to force myself into a 3-minute song.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go and do ideas and then say, oh, this idea works good. This one from here, and then kind of work on it from there. And I think it just feels more like there's like more heart in what you're doing. If you kind of let your freedom to create, you don't put like too many constraints on yourself. You just do whatever you're gonna do, and then see what
That's
comes out.
very true.
It's true. Sometimes you'll be like just, I don't know, playing around on an instrument, and then you end up writing something. Maybe it's the lyrics are a bit of a jumble. So
But like the melody is there.
Yeah, you might have it. Yeah. I mean, Tom Petty was famous for just mumbling things. Like I was watching a thing on it. He'd have something. He'd just kind of scat it. He'd scat the lyrics. And he wouldn't have a structure. He'd have the melody. He'd have down. But then he's like, I don't know what the words are, but this is what I feel. And then he'd go back and refine it. But he'd have that first cut where he's like, that, yeah, whatever I'm scatting, kind of just made up words or whatever. But that's the feel of what it should be. And to me, that's what you do. You don't say, "Well, I can't do it till it's perfect." No, you kind of you just got to do this kind of stream of consciousness, kind of this random jam kind of thing, and
let what happens happen.
Yeah,
because to me, it's like you just like music is like poetry, and people used to call like the muse, like the romantic poets, like if you get into like Blake and Tennyson and Wordsworth, they say, well, there's this muse and it's like channeling through me. And I'm coming up with all this art because the muse is like I'm picking up this universal feeling of a poet, what a poet should have, right? And I just pick it out of the air. And I think musicians do that too. It's like if they realize
when you find lyrics or a song, it's like it didn't exist, and then it's like you kind of grasped, and
but then what's scary is like if you weren't doing that in that moment in time, that song wouldn't exist.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like, like there's a funny story about Hendrix. He was working with like the Isley Brothers as a sideman, and he would be in the studio, and then suddenly he get this idea, and he would just put it on tape, and it wouldn't be anything like what the song they were doing. And he's like, "What are you doing, Jimmy? What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, the universe gave me, and I had to put it down. I'm sorry." And he was known for being very kind of cosmic, and he would just say, "Yeah, it's coming from the universe. I got to put it down. I'm sorry if if it messes up what you're doing. It's like sorry, but that's what I'm going to do." And I think that's the kind of artist that if you open yourself up to everything that's out there, and you kind of like say, I'm going to channel it, and I'm not going to try to edit myself. I'm just going to I'm just go with it. And I find as I get older, I try to do that more and more. I try not to like overthink it.
That's the best way. It's the same, even like with dancing, you can dance with someone, but if you're not like both free, and you're both stiff or whatever, it's gonna be shit.
Yeah, it's gonna look bad.
Yeah, that didn't sound good. Also, you both stiff. Wow, why you both stiff? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it's just like you got to have this kind of connection. Like when you play with a band, like if you're in a jazz band, right? Everybody kind of feels each other, right? Like if I'm in a jazz kind of quartet and I'm playing boards or something, and people are like, "Oh, did you guys plan that?" It's like, no, it's like we kind of know each other, right? We know each other's the way we play, and I can just looking at the drummer and picking up what he's doing. It's like I can figure out what to do, and he don't got to tell me. And the guitar player doesn't have to yell what keys in. Like, no, I can you just get into it. Yeah, you just kind of feel it. It's all feel based. It's if you get into jazz and blues and stuff like that, it's all kind of feel based. And the problem today is it's so anal. It's so oh, I gotta be right on that 115 BPM or the 160, or I gotta be in C, or I gotta be in. They're so tight that they're draining all the creativity out of it. Because it's like if you're going to be that tight, then it's like you're not giving me enough of a palette to go where I want to go.
Exactly.
It's like wearing really tight pants. If your booty can't move, then you can't dance.
Yeah, how do you get funky like that?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like that's not like a Studio 54 thing. You're like, how am I gonna do that? Like, I can't do that the way you're doing it today. But yeah, so what are you guys working on like a new album, or you just
Yes, we are.
We've got our 4th album almost completely done. It's been tricky because with COVID in South Africa, then the studio and everything closed down, and then
changing the level of
when
like
you
the
how
lockdown.
many people can be in the studio?
No,
It's just
just
like the lockdown levels. It's
so
so
sometimes there's
annoying.
a curfew, like you can't leave your house past a certain hour and you have to be back.
And
And
then
then
there's power
also,
cuts.
yeah, the power outages were so bad, like at some points that you'd go into the studio and then for 6 hours there'd be no power.
So it's
It's
like, well,
So what's
okay.
the
And
point being there for bill? I hope they're not billing you when there's no power.
fuck up. So
yeah.
Yeah,
so then we've almost finished recording. We've got about 18 tracks. I think we want to maybe write some more. And then we are gonna release that only next year just before we go on tour.
But we'll release some singles,
and then
and
it's gonna be
then
like a full project. You think you're gonna do all 18 or whittle it down to like more manageable? Or are you gonna
We've
try to
already done a double album before, and I think we had like 19 tracks on it. And I think it's just very expensive to put that
yeah,
many songs.
onto
hard.
one album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we might have to keep some tracks aside and then maybe just to have them as singles.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause I mean, the one thing I've been looking into is like micro vinyl releases.
Oh,
Just because like when I used to go to New York and Boston, like if I came with like vinyl, just like 100 of them, I could sell them all. Right. And I can make more money selling like 100 vinyls at like $25 US than
Whoa.
I can like make on Spotify all year.
But one thing about Spotify that is cool, I think for any artist, unless you are backed by a crazy big record label with a lot of cash, I think no one you won't really like make money off Spotify, which it's sad, but like because it's crazy that
but the
someone
only
doesn't get compensation for their art, but it does help to spread music out.
Yeah, it's like the radio. You know, the way I look
Yeah,
at it, it's like the radio. It's how I get other gigs, right? I get my podcast gig because I did my music. I get like influence marketing because I do this. I
so
get the
it's a great tool in its own way. And I think people, when it comes to technology of now on the social media, you got to just look at the good and the bad of it. And I mean, it there's more good to it. I mean, it just gets your music out, and if you get onto playlists, you
it
reach
just helps
people
even
you
more.
would never have reached.
yeah.
But
I
even
think I just wish they would the rate would be higher, a little higher for artists.
Yeah,
yeah,
that is it
I,
is pretty
I think
bad.
I think there does need to be something about the rate because I think I do appreciate that I can get worldwide reach, and I get like when I was young, you had to play the pizza shop at a bar, and you could get you get the town like you go to Boston, you could get known in Boston, so then you keep on booking shows, and you really make the money because you're playing in a place near Fenway Park. Like there's this EDM club near Fenway Park where the Red Sox play, and you can go in there and you can do like interesting stuff, and you can make more money than you make on Spotify in one night. Um, but you're just in Boston. And Boston's a
yeah,
Yeah.
big city, but it's better if you go to New York. It's better if you go to LA. It's better if you go to Louisiana or go to Nashville. And so those are the places that you really want to reach. And because of the pandemic, I just been doing these online shows. But I've been getting like influence deals. I've been doing like, marketing for iOS apps, uh, you
That's so
know,
cool.
CBD oil, t-shirt
that's so
companies.
Do you
cool.
try it out?
Yeah, yeah, I'm selling this t-shirt now. So if people go to my shop.
Hey.
Hey, but see,
Yeah,
that's the way to do it,
It's the
though.
only way to do it. I mean, even our Instagram, actually, we had it for 8 years.
And it got taken down.
Just over a week ago,
yeah, I
it's
saw that.
actually really shit. We had 26,500 people that we'd like a lot of them we'd met like through touring and the shows and stuff. So it was just what the
And
fuck?
then to have it like all gone and have
All
to
those
start all
photos.
over again, it's
Yeah,
really
that's I
frustrating.
don't understand why they choose to do that, and then certain things are up that I don't think should be up. So I'm like, okay, you guys like don't they in the US there's a whole other discussion there, but there's a lot of people who think they should be regulated like a radio station. Um, um, uh,
It's so boring though. I mean, it's kind of
Even
crazy.
even people that say like, "Oh, but there's kids or whatever on the social
Your
media."
children
Your kids shouldn't be on fucking social
No,
media.
but your
And even
children should
that,
be educated to know that it's empowering for people to dress how they want without it's not sexual. For me, the thing is, if you shaking your genitals and stuff like out in public and there's kids, that
that's
is
fucked
pretty
up.
fucked up, man. But if you're wearing a bikini or your body painted boobs are natural, it shouldn't be a taboo
yeah,
thing
well,
for
I think
anyone.
it's kind of ridiculous because they you don't understand why they have to like regulate. people's expression of their body. Because I mean, if you're a model, if you're a painter, if you're an artist, you're a visual artist, I think you should have a right to present yourself however you want, right? And
Yeah.
like,
I
and if
agree.
kids, and the parents like, okay, if you don't want your kids there, then make sure they don't go there, right? But it's like that's kind of like parenting. You're like, why do I have to parent for your kid? Like, if I have stuff that's pretty risque. I have content that people have complained. It's like, oh, my kid's listening to the ghost, and you said this. It's like,
Oh
I,
my
I,
gosh.
I always say this: if you don't like me, don't like me, but don't go try to take me off the
But
air.
also, no offense, if those people listen to like the mainstream radio, um, I'm pretty sure they've heard worse shit than that. Like even
Yeah,
that song, fucking what's that, wet ass pussy? That song. Like
yeah,
if you listen to the lyrics of that song and they play that on radio,
yeah. I
Like
know.
so
we've even had some family members that are like shocked by us, but then the 13-year-old daughter singing
singing,
that,
there's
and we're
some
like,
whores in this house. There's some
Yeah,
whores,
and
and like
we're like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
okay,
You never understand, like, like the Rolling Stones were able to say all kinds of things if you go into Jagger's lyrics, right? And it made it to the radio. You got Lou Reed, like if you think about Walk on the Wild Side, right? There's also that made it past the censors, right? And so the people were like, well, how did that make it past the censors and this didn't, right? So it seems very arbitrary what they do, and who they let say what. And so my whole thing is like, I'm going to keep on doing what I think you should do. I think artists should be allowed to do their art. And
yeah,
if
it's
you
the
don't like
same.
it, don't watch it.
Well, exactly.
yeah.
It's the same. Everyone, the thing for me is this: freedom is not just based off one person's perspective. We should all be able to express ourselves. You might not like what someone else has to say, but the fact that they can say it is fucking beautiful, and that is what you call freedom.
One of my favorite though is you'll get like a hater and they'll complain every single day, like saying, this is disgusting, this is disgusting. And it's
Why are
like,
you
well,
watching?
actually,
Why are you watching it then?
yeah. It's like, well, thanks, dude. You're actually my biggest fan because I mean you're on here every day.
You're giving me
So
tons of
It's
views. You're giving me views. So there's something weird about what you're saying because you keep on viewing it. If you
yeah.
hate it so much, why you keep on viewing
It's like eating a piece of shit, eating it, and then being
it?
like, oh,
I
this is
like it.
gross. This tastes like shit,
I
but you
keep on
carry
trying
on.
it. Well, I gotta see if it changes in the next day. Is it gonna change? It's like it's like if it tastes like
It's
this
gonna
day,
calcify.
it's still
I
gonna
used to
be
get so I used to get so frustrated by that, but now I actually just don't care when I see people and it's not just necessarily me. Like if I see someone being demeaning about someone else's appearance, I'm just like, are you like,
Who the fuck cares?
are you all right? Like what the
My
like?
whole
There's
thing
so
is a
much
lot of
more.
people that do this aren't creators, right? So like if you're just the critic, you're the constant critic, right? And you're out there hating on everybody, right? But you don't create anything. All you do is criticize. And my respect for that person is like zip, because
Yeah,
like creators are people who take the time to put themselves out there, right? You as a creator, you're putting your heart and soul into something, and then somebody wants to rip it. It's like, okay, that's your job, is just to rip people, but you don't do
yeah.
anything positive. So I really don't respect that. It's like do something and show some value. Like just sitting around doing negative criticism that has no constructive nature is not a help for anybody.
Do you know what I think it is? I think they're just furious because deep down they feel they deserve some notoriety or whatever,
or fame
or fame or something. And they feel furious because in their mind, how dare you? Because they feel superior. I don't know, somehow they've got this God complex and they're like, how dare this person like assume my position?
Yeah,
And they're like
they,
enraged.
yeah, they take the stage as this negative factor, you know,
Yeah.
and then that gives them their notoriety because they're the hater.
It's definitely a jealousy thing.
It is.
Yeah.
There's no happy person on this earth that would actually go out of their way to be horrible to someone. I can tell you now. I just laugh. I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
feel
they're
terrible
miserable.
for those
Yeah, they're
people.
miserable with themselves. They have nothing else to do,
Yeah.
but go against somebody else's creativity. But so when you do this new record, are you going to be able to tour it, or are you still having a lot of trouble with?
No,
So
no matter what. I mean, we tour well, before COVID, we were
yeah.
touring every single year for
But
8 months. And now this has been this is the
longest
longest
we haven't been like out on tour for, but by the end of March 2022 we plan on being
we will be on
out on
tour.
tour again.
Yeah.
You'll
Like, I
be
mean,
back to
even
New
our
York.
fans,
You'll be
they
back
are
to the
so
US.
New
fucking
York, we want
yes.
to. Yes.
Our fans are so amazing. Even in America, everywhere, through the live streams, they've helped us stay alive. Like we couldn't
They
have
helped me gain 5 pounds.
no,
I'm joking.
we couldn't, honestly, we couldn't survive. We couldn't do the music. We couldn't be who we are without the
Yeah.
amazing support of everyone. Even through the pandemic, people ended up discovering our music and the live streams, and
We're
it's just
forever grateful for that.
wow.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, I think live streaming has been a big thing for me. I mean, because that's what we do with this podcast, but also like with the ghost music, I do constant live streams, and I've been, you know, doing the festival. I think I don't know if I told everybody here, but you know, we last year in July we did this Peg Bedroom Producer Festival with 22 of the guests that had been on the podcast since 2018, and everybody did like a 30-minute set. And everybody, it was really cool to see all the different types of music that, you know, the people that I've interviewed. And well, our idea is to create this kind of community. Like the people who have been interviewed on this podcast, some bands have gone on to collaborate with each other. I've had artists
That's
that
really
actually
cool.
have like watched an episode and then contacted another artist that I interviewed, and then contacted me and then say, hey, and then they got together and they actually worked on something. And I think
that's so fucking cool.
yeah, and that's what I want. Like, I want it to be kind of like the Dead, you know. I want it to be like a community of artists that decide
He's happy.
to do that. Because that's the point. Because you know, if we build a collective of podcast creators, and we can kind of co-collaborate and work together and do our own shows, then we have. You know, I actually even got something worked out with one of the artists that we have in New York, Kendra Black. She has her own record label. And we've talked, and she's actually been on the show and she performed it at the festival about doing this in New York live when COVID's over. They're actually having some venues that she has access to and actually doing a live version of the festival. And so
that would be fucking cool.
That's
But
so
again,
cool.
through adversity, people end up being very creative, and you end up seeing like, I would say the true sides to people, and anyone like that's got another artist back, I think that's really awesome.
But also I think it's really cool that you yourself are also an artist and you've given people a space to just
express themselves.
Yeah. And people obviously feel like a connection and safe enough to want to work with other people that you have worked with. So it's really cool.
yeah, my whole point as an artist was like I saw some podcasters like charging money and only talking for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, you know, my point was like I love to watch documentaries and like behind the music on VH1. They used to be out there, and learn the history of artists because I'm a fan first. Before I was a musician, like I was sitting there listening to the Beatles, listening to all my brothers, listening to Miles Davis, and my dad had this massive record collection when I was a kid on vinyl. And he'd just sit on the weekends because he was a salesman. So when he got home, he would just sit and listen to vinyl. And I would just sit and he had a, you know, Motown, he had jazz, he had rock, he had everything. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And it got me into wanting to be a musician because I just heard all this great music. And I'm like, I want to be able to, you know, communicate with other artists and give them the space so that they can express, you know, what their vision is. And that's what the whole point of this is, you know, is to allow people to do that.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah.
And it's fucking epic.
Well, try to make it as big as I can because you know, we got about 33,000 listeners on Spotify on the audio version of the podcast. We've been getting a couple thousand through YouTube and Facebook. It's building because, you know, these platforms are harder to get numbers on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're hoping that as we do these festivals more often, we're trying to do them twice a year. So we're planning on doing the one in February, another one in July. Is to actually eventually get sponsors at the indie level to actually support indie artists doing these kind of shows and eventually make the shows like live after COVID in places like New York and doing them in like California and stuff if we can. So
I think it'd be so cool. I mean,
I think it will happen because you've come this far and everything just keeps.
Yeah, but even if you look at the 70s and 80s, like there would be those trips where bands would play, like, and you need those kinds of communities of music that they kind of died out, but I think people need them back.
Yeah, like the Sunset Strip and
Yes.
CBGBs, and, if that's that I'm totally like, CBGBs doesn't exist in New York anymore, and I think, if I ever got some people with money, I was like, "You need to take that name and build that place again and make it for indie artists." Like what it was, like the Talking Heads and the Ramones and Blondie. That's where they came out of. They came out of
Yeah.
Yeah.
that club, and it was a small club, but it really, journalists were there, guys from Rolling Stone were there, and they would see these bands and they're like, wow, you know, when we first see the Talking Heads and first see all these early, like the Ramones when they first started playing, and that to me is that people need to have that type of club, to be able to.
Yeah. It seems like nowadays there isn't that kind of connection. I mean, it's almost like people will get signed to a record label and the music's just there. You don't get to see the like music live and then whoa, holy shit, did you see they've blown up or whatever. It's just you
It's
get
either
bombarded with music that's already polished.
it's either up here or down. There's no like
Yeah,
Space, really.
or there's no building blocks kind of thing going on.
yeah, I mean, you get these like, like in my zone on SoundCloud, you get like, the electronic experimental musician, like, I'm a progressive electronic, which is kind of a, expansive sound. You got guys that were doing what I do, like in Berlin and in Iceland and the Netherlands and these little weird spots all over the world. They're into the kind of thing I'm into, but it's like hard to get. Like there are clubs in New York, clubs in Berlin, clubs in LA that cater to like modular synthesis guys who are doing like real stuff with real sense. But it's like 400 people, 500 people, 600 people in a club before the pandemic, and I just want that to kind of build that again because I think
Yeah.
that is where the new artists they learn on the road. That's how
Yeah, that's very
you
true.
build. And all the great bands I love, they built themselves from the road, and then they got incredible, and then they got to the studio, and
Yeah.
and that, it's like what you said, and that is important. I think for artists who actually play an instrument, it's important to actually have that. For the producers who are kind of doing like a different style of music, maybe they don't need to do that. But for bands that actually play instruments, I think we need that.
Yeah. Because it's shit. Like if you just record and then you only tour afterwards, I mean,
You should like
get your
live
sound live.
and also like live with your songs a bit.
Yeah, because the whole thing is like if you do everything on the grid, when you go to play, you're just gonna hit the button and jump up and down and go, "Hey, isn't that cool?"
Yeah,
but,
and then yeah,
but like if you have to actually learn, if you actually played your song track by track over and recording it like an old school musician, by the time you're done, you can actually tour it because you know it.
Yeah.
yeah,
And you don't have to just hit the button on the CDJ or on the MPC or on Ableton Live with a MIDI controller, and then you're locked into the groove. Then I even see like there are rock bands today that got so many backing tracks. They are
Oh,
they
I
are
hate
locked
that.
they're locked into their backing tracks and they can't really move.
there's no freedom. Like, do you know? It's so it's so true. Like you just stuck, and it's like it's mechanical. And yeah, cool, sure, you're hitting it, but then people might as well listen to the
CD,
CD.
yeah.
Yeah, I could just go put that into my iPhone, and why would I go see? Because I'm a guy that would go see all the Allman Brothers, right, and see Greg Allman on his Hammond B3 and Dickie Betts going off on a slide, and you get going to see Bootsy Collins and Funkadelic.
Oh,
That
I
Yeah,
love
Bootsy
Bootsy
Collins.
Collins.
yeah, and just seeing them like jam on stage, seeing a band like Funkadelic, like that is like the whole point of seeing Funkadelic. You could see them 2 times, 2 nights. You could go see them on Friday and Saturday, and the way they played those songs would be different,
Mm,
and it was worth seeing both shows. Today, I could see a band and like, there's no reason for me to see 2 shows because they did it the same every night, and I'm like,
yeah.
that's not exciting to me.
I get you. It's
But that's
just
why
restrictive. It's shit. And we've played with bands like that, and then they're like, they're so bratty and full of shit. And it's like,
but you're
dude,
playing to a fucking
it's
backtrack.
like payback. Like, I'm not being rude. What
Is
the
that
fuck?
and then they'll diss Britney Spears, but it's like, but you're
You
doing the
literally are
same
the rock
thing.
version.
Doing
Okay,
the same
bye.
thing she's doing. It's like my whole point is like, I grew
And
up.
she's just doing it better because at least she's fucking dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with bands like the Replacements and Who's Could Do, and and even the early REM. I mean, REM were on the road. I saw them before they were big when they were on IRS Records instead of Warner Brothers. And it's
Mm.
like I loved REM when I couldn't understand Michael Stipe. right? Like I thought it was great on Murmur and Reckoning and all those records because it was kind of like this thing where he's doing this very musical thing, and I really don't get what he's saying directly, but
But you feel it.
it felt it, and it was kinda like because I'm into jazz and stuff, it didn't matter to me. It's like, I don't care if I don't understand exactly what he's saying, and then once he started to enunciate more, like, okay, it's cool, but I kinda like the old REM when I didn't understand.
His lyrics are always strange, like cryptic,
Yeah,
like
very cryptic.
Like a koi in a shallow
in a
pond.
frozen
Oh
pond,
yeah,
and
like
like
a goldfish in a bowl. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's I don't know his stuff. It's really cool stuff that I really
Yeah,
like
it's really
REM.
cool. Yeah, it's just that it was different, and that's the same thing with the Talking Heads. That they it come there was like there's still nobody really like them. They're like a very unique outfit. Can they come out of the post-punk, but they're not really punk. They're kind of new wave, but they're not exactly new wave because they just had this weird style, and it came from the African rhythms and dance rhythms, and then some punk type of stuff is in there, and they were just all over the map. And to me, it's like that's hard for bands like that to even be created today because like the A&R people look at it and like, wow, where am I going to sell that? Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
we
Yeah,
problem.
we we always say it's tricky with music because we are so influenced by all kinds of music, all kinds of experiences, and like to just try when people say, "Oh, what genre?" It's like, this is really
It's
tricky.
very difficult.
Each
Yeah.
song is different. Each album is completely different from the other.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that's why I tried to go with this idea of expansive sound because I remember when I first started doing my podcast, people say, "Well, oh, are you only going to interview electronic musicians?" I said, "No." Just because that's what I do doesn't mean that's the only thing I'm gonna deal with. But that's kinda like the way the world is. They assumed I'm only gonna talk to trance and EDM and trap. And I mean, I have people I've talked to Nashville artists, artists from Berlin, artists from Japan, Australia, multiple genres. Because I really my collection is that way. What I like to listen to as a fan, I listen to like pretty much everything. My whole thing is it can't be shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but see, but
for me,
that's
yeah,
that's why you're like a good musician because
you're open to everything, and
yeah.
it's important. So many people will be like, "Nope, I only listen to this," and you're like,
But
"What?"
it's like only having a house where everything is green.
Yeah,
How do you appreciate any of the other colors then?
Yeah, I think you get to be a better musician, like, if you challenge yourself and like, "Yeah, today I might listen to some Bach, and then tomorrow I might listen to some Johnny Cash, then I might go listen to Wilson Pickett, and I
I
might
thought
go
you were gonna
listen."
say Will Smith.
yeah.
Maybe not, maybe not. Uh,
Hey, some of his music was pretty.
or maybe, like, when he was DJ Jazzy Jeff and that stuff, yeah, I probably listen to that, but, 'cause that's more old school. But, yeah, it's just I think it's, like, as wide as you can, because even if you're not in that genre, you can learn. I mean, I learned from
Exactly.
Dylan. Like, I think if you're a songwriter, you get to, "Oh, Dylan's voice is not Whitney Houston's voice." Yeah, well, it's never gonna be that, right? But it's like it's what he how he delivers and what he says, right?
Yeah.
And it's like if as a songwriter, you gotta look at guys like Neil Young, Carole King. You gotta look at
Neil
the great.
Young Neil Young has one of my favorite like lyrics of all time.
Which one is it? Which was the lyric
It's
you
the
like?
one where he says it doesn't mean that much to mean that much to you.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, he's got a different aspect he's kind of like Dylan, but he comes at it in a different way. He made the Canadian background, but he's got an interesting kind of hippie esque kind of concept. But then he's one of the first punk rockers. Like
I know it.
Yeah.
Crazy Horse is like a punk band, and they just totally can go out of control. And he doesn't care if he's singing. He can do a perfect pitched Nashville stuff, and then when he gets into Crazy Horse, he can go real punk. And
I
I think
dig it. I think it's important to have
And
that
range.
like balance.
and even
Yeah,
look at him when because they considered him like a folk singer, Neil Young. And then when he
yeah,
picked up an electric guitar, all
All the
that shit he took, but he was
backlash.
like, fuck you, I'm gonna still do it. Rock and roll will never die, baby.
yeah. He do this kind of grunge stuff. He's doing this kind of like Kurt Cobain inspired grunge power stuff. That
Yeah.
he could do as good as anybody. I mean, people call him like the father of grunge because of like
Mhm.
Pearl Jam and Nirvana. Eddie Vedder and Kurt Cobain, they loved Neil Young. They talk about being inspired by Crazy Horse.
Oh, well, look at his lyrics.
He was a
even.
storyteller.
Like,
Yeah.
he writes some of the saddest lyrics you've ever heard in your life, and that's fucking grunge.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like
Yeah.
he can do it in such a great way. But I am kind of hitting the top of the hour, so I loved having
Oh,
you.
Okay.
And it's just awesome to have you guys on. We will give you all the links for this so everybody can see the permanent versions within an hour. I will start sending you stuff. But yeah, it's great to have you guys on.
Thank you for
open,
Thank
having
you
us.
very much.
open invitation. If you want to do the Peg Festival in February, let me know.
That'd be fucking cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. Everybody, get to the SoapGirls website. Go to the link tree. Go to Spotify. Go everywhere. But also anywhere you can buy their material, buy it, download it, favorite it, playlist it, like it. That's what you should
Thank you.
do.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We honestly, I don't realize, or wait, I don't think, sorry, that people realize how much of an impact they have on the artists that they like. Like you, just even the support, like, and people loving your music, and people pressing play on Spotify, like it really does help.
And thank you also for giving artists a space to,
Like seriously, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll talk to you guys again. I know I will, especially when your new album comes out, come and premiere.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.